Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Inshallah, we are continuing from our panel discussion on angels. Last week, we talked about the angels and what they are and how the wisdom requires in the universe, like the order and the beauty, the adornment in the universe requires the existence of spiritual beings. And just like, we have a material body, and Allah Ta'ala creates life from material, from elements. And there should also be spiritual beings created from other things, like spirits from the light and other things. And angels, like our friends, inshallah, we will continue to learn about them. We are continuing from reading from the 29th word, inshallah. And our speakers are, again, Colin Turner from UK and Professor Mustafa Tuna from North Carolina. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم تنزل الملائكة والروح فيها بإذن ربهم قل الروح من أمر ربي. And in 29th word, there are many other verses on angels, but these are the verses like in the beginning on Surah Al-Qadr, in the night of power. The angels come down and the spirit by the permission of their sustainer. Inshallah, as I said last week, we started talking about angels, and this week we will continue to talk about them, and we will start to talk about the nature of the universe and how the nature of the universe, the essence of the universe, requires the existence of angels and spirit beings. And inshallah, at the end, we will be able to say that since we exist, right, since humans exist, as we exist, angels and spirit beings exist too, inshallah, and this will increase our iman. And this is the second tenet of iman. I will read the first two slides, inshallah, and then we will start to explain them, inshallah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. The nature of the universe surely points to the existence of angels and spirit beings. For since it is embellished and decked out with uncountable numbers of finely adorned works of art and meaningful decorations and wise embroideries, it self-evidently requires the gazes of thoughtful admirers and wondering, appreciative lovers. It demands their existence. Yes, just as beauty requires a lover, so is food is given to the hungry. Thus, the sustenance of spirits and nourishment of hearts in this boundless beauty of art looks to the angels and spirit beings. It points to them. For while this infinite adornment requires an infinite duty of contemplation and worship, human and the jinn can perform only a millionth of that infinite duty, that wise supervision, that extensive worship. This means that boundless varieties of angels and spirit beings are necessary to perform those duties and to fill and inhabit the mighty mosque of the world with their ranks. The nature of the universe, inshallah. Let's start to talk about it, inshallah. Mustafa Hojam, can we start with you, inshallah, from this slide? The nature of the universe requires the existence of angels and spirit beings.
Okay, inshallah. Maybe we can start with an introduction to this, which might make it which might contextualize what we are reading here. As you said, belief in angels is one of the tenets of our faith, our creed. It actually comes the second in the usual formulation that we have received from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And historically, mutakallimun, the scholars of theology, have tried to develop evidence, proofs for these tenets of faith. However, they have actually considered developing evidence, proof for the existence of God, the oneness of God, some of the attributes of God, and also the necessity and reality of prophethood as their primary duty, and said that these are matters that can be and should be understood intellectually through reason. They said we have to develop certain lines of thought, reasonings, inferences that prove the existence of God and prophethood, etc. They call these aqliyat, rational matters. When it came to angels, the hereafter, divine determination, the other aspects of the main tenets of faith, they said these are matters that we can know only by receiving information, receiving reports about them from God and his messengers. These are not matters that can be intellectually proven. Therefore, we will focus on God and the prophet, and if and when we prove the verity of the prophethood of the messenger of God, then we can have certain knowledge that everything that he tells us are accurate and true. So they call this sam'iyat, heard matters. This doesn't mean that they were completely averse to developing evidence for the existence of angels, the hereafter, etc., but they thought this was not the primary focus of their work, and some, not necessarily mutakallimun, but the philosophers, famously Ibn Sina, Avicenna, said it is not even possible to develop arguments for the existence of angels. So what Ustad Nursi is doing here is something revolutionary, actually. So I think we first need to understand that we are, obviously we received the information about the existence of angels from the Qur'an, from the Prophet ﷺ, but he is not leaving the matter there. He is telling us, okay, let's take a look at the creation and see how the creator has created the creation. And let's see, based on that information, based on our understanding of how things are happening here, if this is necessary, if it makes sense. So I guess that might be the introduction, but I don't want to talk too much, so I'll stop there. We are basically looking at our environment, ourselves, the cosmos, the earth, and trying to understand, okay, how do things work here? And then from there, we are moving on to explain, okay, if things work in this way, in this particular way, in the realm that we see, then that must continue to the realm that we do not see, because they are created by the same creator. So I'll stop there, inshallah.
Jazakallah. So throughout history, you said only existence of God and the necessity of prophethood was given emphasis, but not the rest four tenets, right? Especially the angels was not given.
Not in the field of theology, where the focus is on rational argumentation, right? In other fields, like in Sufism, etc., that there are discussions, but not with this focus.
Thank you. Yes, Colin Hocam, what are your comments on this? With this introduction.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Oh, it was a very good introduction, and I think it sets us up for two things. One is a discussion on rationality and non-rationality and irrationality, how to prove things which are non-rational, such as angels, but not irrational, clearly. But I think that is for another time, or maybe we can use 5 minutes at the end of the session to talk about that. But Mustafa has nicely also left it open for us to talk now about creation, because creation is the setting, the context in which we understand angels. And I think that if we look at the universe as a whole, we see that the way the universe is configured demands the existence of witnesses. there is a reality in creation, the reality of observing, of witnessing. This is something that is foundational to creation and the way that creation is set up. Lots of examples. You could look at a beautifully painted portrait as the expression of the artist's skills and talents. It's a display of his abilities, his qualities as a painter. So many facets and aspects of that artist's life will be revealed through his work. So there is an act there of revealing. The act of revealing is predicated on the existence of a revealer, someone who has something to reveal, to show, to display. And these acts, these functions, revealing, showing, displaying, would appear to be ubiquitous. They're everywhere. They're foundational to existence itself. And so if these actions and functions are primary or essential, if you like, then they also necessitate the existence of beings to whom things are revealed, beings to whom things are shown, beings in front of whom things are displayed. So I think we need to look at these very, very foundational actions and functions in creation. A display or an exhibition that has no observers, no witnesses, no visitors, who are there to view it, really defeats its own object. And so a display necessitates observers, and the observers of the cosmic display, the divine exhibition, are those beings who are created with the ability to observe, to understand, and to appreciate the things which are being displayed and exhibited. Now, there are different kinds of displays and different forms of exhibitions. And so the kinds and the forms of the observers will also differ accordingly. And as the text says, humans and jinns are restricted to certain conditions, certain realms, certain domains, and they can't observe or witness everything in existence in a personal sense. And therefore, those realms and worlds which are inaccessible to them will have witnesses and observers, the nature of which will conform with the realm or the domain where the display and the exhibition is taking place. Each realm of existence, each domain of creation is bound to have observers and witnesses in a manner that is in keeping with that particular realm or that domain. And I think this is where we start. Creation as a whole demands observers. Humans and jinns cannot observe everything, and therefore there must be lots of other kinds of observers whose nature is different to ours. And in this text, we are being introduced to some different kinds of observers, angels and spirit beings.
So much, Jazakallah. So you started with saying that the way the universe is set up and created requires the existence of observers, just like in a display, in an exhibition. It requires the observers. Exhibition, if there was no observers, it would be pointless to exhibit something, right? To come up with art. And now when you said that, I have a question now in my mind, saying that in this material world, for example, in this world, Allah Ta'ala created this amazing creation, like this material creation, and He made us, He gave us this physical body. And since God has other realms, right, other worlds, other like levels of existence, other realms, not just this material realm, but other realms. So, and those should have art and beauty as well, and those should have life, beings that has life, right, to observe those beauties as well in other realms as well.
Yeah, I think what the treatise is trying to inculcate in us, in its readers, is an appreciation of a very important principle, namely that we're not the only game in town. Each environment is going to have inhabitants which are appropriate to that environment, and we see examples of this. If you look at the plant kingdom and the animal kingdom, you'll see that this is true there. Each different habitat has inhabitants that are peculiar to that particular habitat. This is why we find camels in hot, dry places, and we find fish in lakes and rivers and seas. This is why we find light-skinned people at high latitudes and darker-skinned people nearer the equator and so on. So as far as the whole vast universe is concerned, it is full of different worlds and realms to which we don't have access. So necessarily, there must be inhabitants whose forms will differ accordingly. And it makes sense, as you said, for the spiritual realm to be populated not by corporeal beings, you know, like us with bodies, but by non-corporeal beings such as angels, spiritual entities, entities created from various subtle, intangible substances. Each world, and I think it's important to get this fixed in our mind before we even talk about angels, each world will have dwellers in it who are created especially for that world. So the point is, the creation requires witnesses and observers. And as you say, each created realm will have created beings who can acknowledge and appreciate that particular realm.
Thank you. And those beings should have intelligence, right? Not just like animals. Like animals have some kind of life, and you know.
No, they need to be conscious. They need to be conscious because the appreciation must be conscious appreciation. But I think, as we'll go on to see, angels are conscious, but not conscious that they're conscious. But they're still conscious. They're still aware. But that's another issue. But yes, you're right. They need to be sentient and they need to be conscious.
Thank you. I also want to point out some parts in these two slides, and maybe Mustafa Hocam can talk about that. You know, Allah Ta'ala created human beings, and He gave human beings a higher level than angels. But here it says human and the jinn can perform only a millionth of that infinite duty of contemplation of the beauty of the universe and the beings. Inshallah, you know, any comments on this, or maybe in other parts as well?
Sure. No, I guess the solution to that question is to think about the difference between quality and quantity. Human beings and the jinn dwell the earth, right? We live here on this earth, and compared to the rest of the cosmos, which they say is, you know, as at least as wide as 14 billion light years. It's even difficult to conceptualize that in my mind, but like however it longs for light, however long it takes for light to travel in a year, multiply that by 14 billion, I guess that's what it means. So we are able to see a tiny little bit of the huge cosmos, and even here on Earth we are able to see only a tiny little bit of what is here. And we mentioned the somewhere in the Amazons, a flower blooming there somewhere in the Amazons, we don't see it, right? So the quality with which the human beings, and to some extent we don't, you know, have detailed understanding of that, but the jinn see, evaluate, and appreciate is very different from the quality of the way that angels see, evaluate, and appreciate, and part of them being conscious, you know, self-conscious, self-aware, etc., is part of this. But the main thing is the human beings are able to choose evil, see and be drawn to bad, choose ugly over beautiful, right? And then they are presented with beauty and ugliness. And when a being that is able to choose one over the other chooses beauty, right? This is appreciation with the true meaning of appreciation. Whereas an angel does not have the ability, does not have the capacity to choose ugly over beautiful, does not have the ability to, you know, go for what's bad and leave good behind, right? It's I don't know if this is the right word, but it's almost automatic. When the angel sees beautiful, the angel is drawn to it. When the angel sees good, the angel is drawn to it. The angel cannot do bad, cannot do evil. The human being can. So this human being who is able to do good and do evil, when he chooses to do good, that is a complete indication and manifestation of God's, right, command, worthiness, being worthy of that appreciation and that gratitude, as opposed to, you know, the other one where, yes, there is appreciation and offering of gratitude and glorification, but it is not conscious and filtered from this ability to pick one over the other. Now, human beings, therefore, qualitatively, the human being's appreciation is at the furthest end of creation. That's why the human being is the fruit of creation. With that appreciation, the purpose or the wisdom in the creation is complete, right? But things that are very precious are rare. So the human beings, as we started, dwell on this earth, can't go further. I mean, yes, we maybe like go to the moon and we can send probes into the space, etc. But even then, we are on looking like tiny speck in the larger realm of creation, and that we are talking only about the seen realm. What about the unseen realm, right? That's even greater. According to in prophetic tradition, when we compare the arsh and of course the throne and the footstool, right? The footstool is incomparable in terms of the size. The footstool cannot compare to arsh. And then this realm that we see compared to the footstool is like a ring dropped in the desert. So imagine that enormous size, enormous quantity, right? So that also needs to be filled with appreciators, because human beings can't go there. Now, there's one catch here. The human being, as we said, physically cannot get all over that place and appreciate everything one by one, but it still has the ability to appreciate with a universal appreciation by using his intellect and imagination. So when we offer our gratitude to God, we can offer in the name of everything that's created, everything in the creation. But physically, we cannot be there to fulfill that responsibility. Therefore, the logic that we see, the wisdom that we see in the creation, that necessitates, as Dr. Turner has been explaining, since it requires appreciators witnessing and appreciating the beauty, the majesty, the perfection that is manifest in the creation of God's beautiful names and attributes, right? There must be beings spread all over throughout the creation, and we call them angels and spirit beings.
This also explains the topic, right? Because humans can only reflect one thing and observe the universe, maybe by intention, right? Maybe we can by intention we can say we can glorify Allah to the number of all the flowers in the world, but we cannot physically see and appreciate every flower in the world, and that each flower maybe needs someone to observe it, some spiritual beings. Definitely not humans, but yes, spiritual beings. Colin Hocam, any comments on this?
No, I think it was put perfectly. I can't add to it. Or everything that is created demands an observer. Everything is created beautiful, as a beautiful thing, beautifully. Everything that's created beautifully desires or requires or necessitates, although necessitates might be too weighty a word, someone to admire it. I mean, it's sort of hardwired. They go together, actually. It's like the hand and the shadow. They always go together. So the beauty and the admirer of beauty go together. They're sort of built in.
MashaAllah. Also, there's a question in the chat. Mustafa Kunuraja says, how about jinns? They are not as solid as us, like materially. Cannot they do the duty of contemplation of the places that we cannot reach?
I would imagine so. I mean, I don't really know much about the glorification of jinns. We know that jinns, there are two kinds. There are, as with human beings, there are believer jinns and unbeliever jinns, and possibly all along the spectrum. So I don't know how their glorification takes place, but clearly they can access situations and circumstances that we can't. So, what relates to angels in this respect also relates to jinn. The things that we can't do and they can do, then that's why they're created, clearly.
Yeah, but even then, they are still limited to the face of the earth.
Yes, yes.
They cannot go beyond the heavens.
Yeah, apparently they can't go beyond the moon, according to tradition. But I mean,
and now I think about numbers as well. Like since jinns multiply like us, and they are limited numbers, right? But we have almost like infinite number of art in the universe.
we know that there are realms that we can't access because creationally we're not suited to it. And so we are created from clay. Obviously, this symbolizes a lot more than the surface explanation would have us think. And jinns are from fire and angels are from light. So you can extrapolate from that. Different circumstances and different habitats require different inhabitants. So what is appropriate for a creature that created from fire, whatever that actually means and signifies, then that is what jinns are created to do. They must be needed in creation because clearly there are places and things that we can't really access, be it conceptually or physically.
So before going to the next slide, one more thing here I want to point out. It says the sustenance of spirits and nourishment of hearts. I feel like, for example, is it like related to it when us humans, like when there's food or sustenance, and if you're hungry, you cannot help but go appreciate that food, right? It's like sustenance, nourishment. It's in our nature to go, and if you're hungry and there's delicious food, you can't help but go taste that delicious food that Allah created. Is it like the same for angels, like when they see beauty? And in the 24th word, Bediüzzaman Zaman says, the angels get that kind of pleasure that humans can never understand. Is it related to it? Like, for example, they eat food and angels get that kind of pleasure from observing the beauty of the art of Allah in the universe? Rajan, any comments on this?
I'll let Dr. Turner go first.
I was just going to say, I'll let Mustafa Hoxha say something. Okay. I've said a lot already.
Yeah, I mean, remember at the beginning I said when we look at the order, or I said something like this, the order by in which the creation is created, right? And because we relate that order to the creator, we then can expect the same order to be valid and in effect in places where we cannot reach, in places where we cannot see. Now, when we think about the beauty that is surrounding us everywhere on earth and in the heavens, and that is not just a hypothetical statement, by the way. Like the beauty in proportionate distribution and orderliness, right, indicates that it is intentional, it is intended, right? It is not a beauty that happens to be there, but it is intended. Therefore, once we grasp that intention, we ask, okay, someone intended this, what was the purpose of that intention? Then we look and observe the benefit that comes out of this, because there's a connection between wisdom and benefit. So, as Ustad Nursi also gives the example of, if we were to, walk, let's say we are, walking in the forest, and then we come across this beautiful mansion, and then we walk in and we find that there's like a huge table that is spread, and it is filled with beautiful dishes, and they are beautifully organized and embroidered, etc., etc. So we are two friends, and one turns to the other and says, "See, this is just happens to be here. This has happened chance. This must have happened accidentally. Whoever owns this place, just wanted to cook some food, and therefore he cooked the food and put them on the table." The other one will say, like, come on, that doesn't make sense. There must be a feast going on. There must be a feast planned here. There must be people who will come and eat this food, right? So we understand from the existence of the food, the existence of the nourishment, that there will be those who will come and consume it. So we then look at the beauty, which is a form of rizq, which is a form of provision for us, right? Now, how do we consume? How do we, maybe consume might be too material word, but how do we benefit from that beauty? We don't, put it in our mouth and swallow and digest it in our stomachs and then something happens. No, that's not what happens with beauty. The manner in which we benefit from beauty is a spiritual affair. We benefit from beauty through our, okay, we don't know exactly where in our existence that is, but through our mind, through our heart, through our spirit, right? Okay, so now we understood that the partaking of beauty is a spiritual matter. Then let's expand this and see the beauty everywhere in the creation. Now, wherever we dig up, we see beauty there. So then we assume that this is everywhere in the space, in the Milky Way, beyond the Milky Way, right? So those, again, the feast is there. There must be those who will come and benefit from this. The manner in which they will benefit then needs to be a spiritual affair. Then they need to have spirits, because beings that are deprived of spirit cannot benefit in a spiritual way. There must be spirits everywhere.
Thank you very much.
Can I just say that, Mustafa Hoja's point about intentionality is very important. Everything is intended. And the fact that we enjoy beauty and appreciate beauty, and we have aesthetic appreciation, shows that things are intended. Beautiful things are created with an intention. They're not just there for their own sake. No author writes a novel that no one else is going to read. No painter paints a picture and then forbids everyone else from looking at it. It just doesn't make sense. So there's an intentionality there, which shows that, the observer and also the place of observation, that's also important. These are built in and these go together. This is why Ustad Nursi doesn't start off by saying angels are like X, Y, Z. They're like this, that, or the other. He starts off by looking at the necessity for angels in the context of the configuration of the universe and the setting in which angels operate, because they are very much of a muchness. They are together. They are a whole. They are parts of the same whole. They're not something atomized and separate and isolated. So if there is beauty, there must be, by necessity, observers of that beauty and places where that beauty is made manifest. Does that make sense? These go together. It's a unity. And part of our understanding of Tawheed is that, where there is a revealer, there is also a recipient of revelation. There must be. They go hand in hand. They're lazim malzum, they go together.
MashaAllah. So, yeah, when you said Tawheed, oneness and the existence of Allah, that's, how we say, all the tenets of belief are related, connected to each other, and they cannot be separated, right?
I think so. If you think of a hand and the shadow, okay, so what has primacy? The hand has primacy, but the shadow always exists. But the shadow is predicated upon the hand. So the hand and the shadow go together. And this is how Ustad Nursi talks about these issues. He talks about it in a holistic Tawheedi way. So he doesn't start just describing angels. He also looks at the place where angels operate. And why do they operate? Are they needed? And he concludes that, yes, they are needed. And because they are needed, they exist.
Mustafa Jami, if there's no another more comments, I want to go to the next slide.
Sure.
Indeed, a species of the spirit beings and angels is present in every aspect, in every sphere of the universe, each charged with a duty of worship. It may be It may be said, according to both the narrations of the hadiths and the wisdom in the order of the universe, that from lifeless planets and stars to raindrops, all are ships or vehicles for a kind of angel. The angels mount these vehicles with divine permission and travel, observing the manifest world. They represent their praise and glorification. Now, starting with this, there's a question on the chat. Says, do any spirit beings other than angels live in the stars and galaxies? And we see the spirit beings in this slide. Do any spirit beings other than angels live in the stars and galaxies?
I think that the answer there comes from, you know, the tenor of what we've been saying up until now, is that every realm will have inhabitants, observers, witnesses, however you want to call them, that are in keeping with and in a form commensurate with that habitat. So whatever that habitat is, however it operates, whatever dynamics are there, are working there, then there will be, by necessity, observers and witnesses appropriate to that setting. Exactly what they are, how they are, we can't say. What about the subatomic world? You know, the world of quarks and leptons and muons and all of these things. They must also have observers there. You know, maybe not invisible observers, maybe actual, you know, potentially visible observers, but we don't know the nature of them, the form of them, how they are, but we do know that they exist. We can take it for granted that they exist, because where there is a display, there is also a witness.
Mashallah, also there's a comment maybe related to it. Says, in addition to beautiful scenes around us, necessitating conscious observers, there are uniqueness and degrees of beauty which requires different perceptions of beauty. The rainbow seen to you is different than shown to me, for example. It says, like as you said, angels and other spiritual beings, right, and appropriate to that space.
That's a very interesting observation.
Yeah, different levels of appreciation, the beauty, right? We are 100% sure, like there is infinite beauty in the arts of Allah, but maybe it requires different levels of appreciation of that thing.
Yeah, I mean, when Ustad uses the word naqsh, embroidery, I mean, he doesn't, maybe he does, I don't know if he does, but he doesn't, you know, give us a dictionary definition of what he means there. But what I understand from it is, you know, all his names are beautiful, and all his beautiful names are manifest in the creation, right? But then let's say the name Al-Razaq. So when the name Al-Razaq is manifest in the creation, do we then assume a uniform manifestation of a single thing everywhere? No, there are levels or forms or varieties of the manifestation of the name Al-Razaq. Or take the name Al-Jamil, beautiful, right? There are different forms, varieties, levels of the manifestation of the name Al-Jamil. So we take one rose, it is pink, it is, I don't know, this big, and it is beautiful, and it manifests the name Al-Jamil. And we take another rose, perhaps on the same bush, but, you know, facing a little bit north, therefore it is, you know, slightly paler in color or something. But it also has its beauty. It is also, you know, beautiful in its, it is also manifesting the name Al-Jamil, but they are manifesting in slightly different ways. So this is the embroidery in the creation, right? And therefore, the varieties of manifestation of, let's say, the name Al-Jamil, right, goes, you know, up to the number of everything that is created with the understanding that there is beauty in everything that is created, right? And if you are going with the premise that every beauty demands or entails an observer, there needs to be an observer that is capable of appreciating that beauty. And therefore, the difference among human beings, the beauty of diversity among human beings, right? The beauty of sometimes to a certain level, a difference of opinions or differences of appreciation, differences of tastes among human beings. And then we can extrapolate from there that this diversity and differences of tastes will be, in the entire creation, because we already established that logic, right? When we see here, it is from the same creator, it needs to be everywhere. So yeah, mashallah, that's a beautiful observation.
We also have to realize that the canvas is limited, but the artist has an infinite number of nuqush, an infinite number of patterns that he wishes to show us through a manifestation of names and different configurations of names, different constellations of names. Since we use the astronomical terminology, Ustad Nursi uses constellation, a particular name that is appearing in a particular constellation of names. Very, very beautiful. And this has to be infinite because, this is why we have a hereafter. Because this limited canvas, is not enough for the infinite variety of names and configurations of names to be shown. And of course, that calls for eternal witnesses and eternal observers and an eternality, a place that is eternal and enduring, for there to be this infinite number of mirrors to reflect the beauty of the creator.
Yes, thank you very much. I found that has been a very good comment on the question. Inshallah, there's another topic here I see. It says that both the narrations of the hadiths and the wisdom in the order of the world, that it shows that from lifeless planets and stars to raindrops, all are ships or vehicles for a kind of angel. The angels mount these vehicles with divine permission and travel observing the manifest world. They represent their praise and glorification. I want to ask, how the angels mount these vehicles and how they represent their praise. Colin Hocam, is it related to what you say last week, how angels represent the laws in the universe?
I think so. Yeah, I've been reading the first name of the 29th word again, and it would appear that particularly in the case of inanimate creatures, but in actual fact, you can universalize that and say all creatures. The angels are bearing the names of the creator and, in a sense, translating them into tangible, externally created forms. So whether it's a raindrop or whether it's a fig tree, whether it's a human being, whether it's a cat, those beings are basically the names of Allah in particular configurations, in particular forms and patterns, and they are born by angels. They are carried, in a sense, by angels. So the angel is appointed to that particular amr, that particular command, and the angel bears it and presents it to the rest of the creation, while at the same time representing the glorification of that particular creature. So it has a sort of dual function there. It presents Allah's names to us in a form that we can understand, and it also relays the glorification of that being back to its creator. So it's the interface, really. So it doesn't, Ustad uses these terms, I don't think we should understand them literally, mounting those vehicles. Basically, the vehicle and the rider are more or less one and the same thing. Although we need to see them as different beings from another perspective. In fact, the cherry tree, and again, we're using the cherry tree, I use the cherry tree, is the cherry tree angel, basically. Because whatever we see there is a sort of concatenation of angels in different forms, different poses, doing different kinds of worship, but they are all cherry tree in essence. Does that make sense? So it's not that there is a cherry tree and then the angel mounts it. basically the angel mounts the amr, the command from Allah, which says kun. When Allah says to the cherry tree, kun, and then fayakun, it is through the medium of angels, through the mediumship of angels that this happens. And again, the angel is an intermediary, not because Allah needs it, but because we need it.
So can we say, when you say intermediary, for example, we are, for example, like civil engineers, they basically like build skyscrapers, and they like use their intellect and with all the things they got from Allah, with their intellect, their knowledge, everything came from Allah, and they built this building. So do you mean like the angels, when they, in that sense, are they like building the tree, making the tree?
I like the idea of angels as the civil engineers of the cosmos. That's a lovely idea. It's yes and no. From one perspective, yes, they are the ones who are doing the building. They are the ones, and I don't want to say they are the ones that are doing the creating, because that sounds very, very, very close to being heretical, I would imagine. But they are the ones who are representing Allah's creativity.
Yeah,
so they are. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, just asking, maybe Mustafa Hocam, I think, has things to say about this as well. I'm just saying, asking this in a way, because we see the elements like they are not conscious, they have no life, they have no ears, and they cannot, for example, these unconscious elements cannot come together and make the tree, right? And just like a building cannot be made by itself, it needs an intelligent human being. And we know that la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah, right? There is no power except Allah's. Even when we build something, it's from Allah. I'm asking in that sense, like these unconscious elements cannot come together and make the tree. Maybe angels are representing their conscious, intelligent being. Angels are kind of with the power of Allah, representing in the formation of the tree. So they represent the formation of the tree in a way.
I think that's the case.
Or Kolnajam, or yes, Mustafa Hocam, we can.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to bring up the metaphor that Ghazali used for this, because metaphors help us understand. We don't, we don't confine our understanding to the metaphor, or we don't reduce our understanding to the metaphor, but we use it to help understand the matter, right? So his metaphor for this is a pen scribbling on a piece of paper, right? So, and assume that you are the ant that can only see the tip of the pen. That's your capacity, that you can't see beyond that. You need a telescope to see all the way to the whoever is writing. All you see is the tip of the pen, right? But the reality that an observer that can see the larger picture will see is that the tip of the pen is connected to the pen, and the pen is held by a hand, and the hand connects to a person, right? So are the angels making the tree? Well, is the tip of the pen writing the letter, right? If we don't assume that the tip of the pen is what writes the letter, then we don't assume that it is the angel that makes the tree, right? But God, not because he needs a pen. Now the scribe needs a pen in order to write. The scribe cannot, use his finger to write, or the scribe cannot just think and then use some, I don't know, like what telepathy or something, and have things written on the paper. The scribe cannot do it. When it comes to God, there is no limit. He says, "Kun fayakun." But because we need it, as Hojam mentioned, because we need it, right? God chooses to reveal his creative power through these intermediaries, or perhaps a better word to use here would be through these proclaimers of his creative power, right? So the affair starts with God, and we cannot conceptualize, we cannot comprehend God, right? But it starts with him, and then we move to his command, kun, be, right? That is, as scholars have classified these things, and Aristotle also used, that is the alam al-amr, the realm of command. Sometimes they say the realm of Jabarut, but alam al-amr is a more Quranic term, and Aristotle uses that. The realm of command. So now in the realm of command, all that exists is the command, but the command is the source and reality of everything that will happen from there on, right? So the command then is received in the alam al-malakut, the realm of domination, or the realm of angels, or the angelic realm. There are different translations. Received by the angels in the alam al-malakut and translated into alam al-mulk, right? Now, this doesn't mean that this is the realm of command, and this is the realm of domination, and this is the realm of malakut. We cannot and should not be thinking in this spatial arrangement. The realm of I am in the realm of command here and now. I am in the realm of the of domination here and now, and I am in the realm of the domain or mulk here and now, right? But I can interact as a human being. I can interact more easily and more readily with the realm of mulk, which is a manifestation of what's happening, the tip of the 10, right? I mean, some people whose spirits become more sublime, more purified, whose heart becomes more purified, right, may start to engage and interact with the realm of domination, or the angelic realm too, right? So, and it is all together, right? So when we say when we talk about the angel of the cherry tree, right? So not the cherry tree, but the angel of the cherry tree, right? We don't go into the spatial arrangement where we have the cherry tree as a corporeal body and then the angel mounting on it. No, these are interlocked realms that go together. However, my understanding is that when it comes to the spirit, right, the spirit can be separated from the body that it is locked into, right? That it is associating with. The way when the human beings sleep, they say sleep is half death, right? Sleep, the spirit is freed to some extent, although it maintains a connection with the body, and then comes back when we wake up. Or the way the spirit separates altogether from the body, and then the body is lifeless. It is, going to decay and disappear, but the spirit continues. Now the issue is the spirit needs a body again, because the spirit interacts with the rest of creation through senses. And to sense, it needs instruments of sensing, right? So we are given eyes, and this might be a nice thought experiment, right? We are dwelling in this palace of the body, and the eyes are the windows of this palace. When we look, we are looking through the windows of the palace. But what looks is not the eye, is not the brain, is not the nerve system that connects the eyes to the brain, etc., etc. What looks is the spirit, which is, by a secret that we cannot comprehend, right, given the ability to interact with the rest of creation through this corporeal body. So again, by extrapolating from this, the stars that appear to be lifeless, right, there's perfect economy in the creation. God does not waste anything, and he uses everything for a myriad purposes, right? It would be wasteful to just let them be there as lifeless objects and traveling, etc. Yes, we are seeing and observing and seeing the beauty, but he uses all of these things for multiple purposes. One of those purposes is to manifest beauty, another is to observe beauty, right? So it makes sense then for a lifeful being, a spirit, an angel, right? These are the names that we are using to just refer to whatever that is, right? Is dwelling in it. It is locked with it, right? But not again in that spatial arrangement, right? It's one and the same as Dr. Turner, Colin Hocam said.
Mashallah, Jazakallah. I liked, when you say the angels are like translators, like also Colin Hocam was mentioning that they're translating. And when we make comparisons, and as you said, we give examples from our lives, but even in the Quran, Allah compares, right? Makes comparisons, and Allah Ta'ala says, وَلِلَّهِ الْمَثَلُ الْأَعْلَى, right? Allah is above all comparisons. But from the comparison you gave, you mentioned the tip of the pen, right? If I'm right, pen, hand, and the person. So in that, like the writings are like the creation that we see, right? So the tip of the pen, the angels are where in this comparison? Exactly.
Imam Ghazali thinks of or suggests them as the hand, and then the tip of the pen or the pen becomes the material realm that we are in.
So in the formation of this cherry tree, the cherry tree becomes like the tip of the pen, and we see the
what
pen
we
is
see.
writing.
What we see of the cherry tree is the tip of the pen, but the reality of the cherry tree includes the corporeal body that we can interact readily in this realm of dominion, the angel that is appointed to it or that it is entrusted to, that is in the angelic realm, and the command and the name and attribute that is associated with that command. So ultimately, the reality of the cherry tree is not the wood, the cellulose, and vitamin and etc. It is not the angel. The reality of the cherry tree is the names and attributes that it becomes the locus of manifestation for, mazhar, for.
Inshallah, we are at the end of our discussion, mashallah. This has been a very fruitful discussion, Jazakallah. Colin Hocam, any more comments? Last comments on this?
I think that Mustafa Hoja's explanation was wonderful, actually, and I'm going to go back over and listen to it again. A lot of people get scared when we talk about angels being intermediaries or a medium. And there are a couple of analogies that we can use. One is angels are a kind of filter. If you want to look at the sun, you can't look at it directly, and therefore you have to look through a filter. That filter is analogous to the angels, and of course the sun is analogous to Allah. So we need the filter. Allah doesn't need the filter. Allah looks directly to us, but we wouldn't be able to bear that. So we need the filter, and angels are the filter. Second analogy possible is if your hand is made of fire and you want to touch something that's very soft and flammable, you have to wear an asbestos glove. Otherwise, whatever you touch is going to be consumed by flame. So we are the ones who would be consumed by flame if we were touched directly by the hand of power. Therefore, the hand of power comes with a glove, if you wish. And that glove is the angelic presence. We need the angelic presence. Allah doesn't need. Allah directly creates with his hand of power, but for us, that hand is gloved. Therefore, there is a medium, there is an intermediary there, but it is because of our need and not the divine need.
Well, that's also, it explains very well, when the sun example you gave, we see the formation of nature, right? These trees, everything that we enjoy to look in this physical realm, in this world. And as you said, we need filter to see the sun, right? We need maybe many filters to see the sun. And we know intellectually that everything is done by Allah, but we see cause and effect, right, at the end. And then angels, like in the example of the pen, right, the hand. But with our intellect, we know it's Allah, but to see that with our eyes and the level of knowing Allah, God, we need filters like this, mashallah. Jazakallah. Mustafa Hocam, Can we make a final dua before we finish, inshallah?
I prefer to defer to Dr. Turner for that.
Nazam?
Sorry, I missed you. You cut out for a while.
Yeah, this we're asking for a dua, inshallah, before we finish.
Okay. Yeah, it's 6:02. Yeah, inshallah. Subhanaka la ilma lana illa ma 'allamtana innaka antal alimul hakim. Oh Lord, the only knowledge we have is the knowledge that you have taught us, and you are the omniscient, the all-wise. Give us the ability and the patience to understand your creation, and in particular, the functions and works and glorification and worship of your creatures, the angels. Inshallah. Wal-Fatiha.